Alright, Smastian here, presenting you a 3-round light tank showcase in three different vehicles. The first of which is going to be the Sheridan, followed by the AMX 1390, and then the T92 Light. And overall, I hope to show what kind of gameplay you should be aiming for when playing in a light tank. So in our first match, we're playing on Malinovka in the Sheridan. And our first instinct is to move up to the E7, E8 location, spot anyone trying to cross to the top of the hill, for whichever one of our buddies is eventually going to set up at E0, at F0, at F8, or even on top of the hill, just so that people know what they're going to be getting, what they're going to be in for. And so we're driving up to the mid, we get spotted by a light tank or a medium tank somewhere in the D4/D5 area, and so we make some artillery avoidance maneuvers. Take a wild snapshot at the Panther 88, and keep doing this very fast, active spotting up here. Trying to occasionally take snapshots when we can, but our primary aim is to spot any targets moving up to the top of the hill at A9, A0. But, well, despite the things that we did manage to spot, and from the looks of it, block a shell from the M4A1, which is weird because, well, we didn't get a sound registration for a bullet or a bounce, but we still got the target marker that was showing us that one of his shells did actually come into contact with us. But no matter. This is about when I notice that none of my allies are actually heading up the 0 line in order to contest the hill. And I make sure to point that out in the chat as well. And so, given that information, we decide to reposition towards the western flank of the map, seeing as how there's already a guard up there, and eventually a Progetto 46 is going to move its way up to support him, and we're going to try to do our best to support them when the time comes. Right now, however, we're repositioning. We already see the Progetto 46 moving. The M46 Patton and STRV are hanging back, trying to do a sniping job, so it seems. And we see that there is still quite a number of people camping the enemy base, but it's within expected parameters. We are, however, up 3-0. And this is something I wasn't paying attention to during the round, which ended up coming as a bit of a surprise to me. But no matter. We see that the T-95 has been flanked by the Progetto 46, although the guard was destroyed by the enemy artillery, and we're perfectly willing to take a shot while moving into position here in order to help the Progetto 46 take this guy down faster. And we take a rather stupid shot at the angled rear armor of the T-92, thinking that our APCR shell would be able to pen through, but, well, it just bounced off. Part of the reason we took that shot, by the way, is because the Progetto 46 is blocking our shot at the proper flat armor of the rear, so we should have waited, is what I'm trying to say. Sort of like how I did right here. I pressed on the brake in order to decrease my momentum, just go unspotted for that extra little bit longer, so that I can get myself into the low ground here, while being unspotted, in order to light up the rest of these folk. And this is where I start putting in some more damage. Just another target of opportunity, really, on the SU-101 here. We elect not to shoot, because the armor he was presenting to us was too strong, and now that he's interested, we're pulling back, having taken another shot at the M4. And, well, the enemy autoloading artillery has made his presence known to us, and his intentions as well, and so we decide to reverse away in order to avoid further incoming fire from him. But we're not completely trying to leave yet, although we did consider it. Like this little motion of mine, I did consider briefly just returning to base and trying to push the other flank again with the other allies. But instead, I waffled on it a little bit and made a snap decision to move myself into the low ground here and continue acting as a spotter, largely because I saw the Object 263 pushing his way up the middle of the field. STR VS1 seems to have missed a shot on us. We took a snapshot at the SU-101, or his last known location, and we see now that the STRV is occupied with the Progetto 46, and we try to put a shot into him, and we should be able to manage it, but we hit his armor at just the right angle to not be able to penetrate. One of the things I'll point out is that the reason why I tried taking that shot on the STRV's really well-angled armor is because he only has 90 millimeter, or his frontal armor can be penetrated by 90 millimeter guns and higher because of an overwatch mechanic that exists in the game. I forget the exact numbers. I think it's so long as your gun's caliber is 3 times the thickness of your enemy's armor, you can penetrate automatically, but that is also subject to some caveats and whatnot, but whatever. So we continue pushing our way up, trying to act the spotting role, and, well, assassinating whichever tanks we possibly can. And right now, we see the T-110E4 trying to charge us down, judging by his movements on the map. So we make a motion as if we want to keep going down towards the H1, H2 grid squares, before doubling back and engaging this pattern. We lock onto target and, well, snap a shot while on the move, so that we can get under his gun into this depression that should protect us both from his gun, at least at present, and the T-110E4, now that we are in the riverbed, in case he would want to turn and try to face us. We are below the T-110E4's gun, who now finds himself at G2, thinking that that is the direction in which we went. And given that we have a lot of health, I feel perfectly willing to continue this weird little damage trait I have going with the M46 and the M4A1. Largely because I think my team is going to be able to pull through without too much difficulty. And, well, we were about to retask towards the T-110E4, but the artillery took us down. However, as we shall see with the end plates, which I did manage to save this time, our team manages to pull through a victory, and, well, our assistance was really helpful. And we'll go over that once we get there. Alright, so looking at the end plates for this round, we see that we managed to do a grand total of 4,558 spotting damage, as well as 1,451 damage of our own, and 3 kills. This is the kind of game that light tanks are intended to play. This was an example of the mechanics working as intended, a light tank actually lighting up targets, getting assistance damage via his spotting, and not actually doing all that much damage on his own, and instead relying on his teammates. However, as we shall see with the next 2 rounds, this is not how you should be playing your light tanks in all cases, because the matchmaker and the small map sizes simply don't allow for that, and especially given the current meta, um, light tanks need to punch well above their weight in order to help their teams, well, pull a victory together. But we'll go over that when we get there. And we'll just wrap this up by looking at the other 2 plates. As said before, it was a victory. And we see that on our team, the tank destroyers came out on top with the most damage, as well as the M4A1, and we came in somewhere around 5th. In terms of base experience, I came in at the top with 831. And given that this is a screenshot, I don't actually have control over any of the panels in order to rearrange them. But, well, as you can tell by arranging the numbers yourself, that's how the base experience worked out. Enemy artillery did the most on the enemy team, and we essentially managed to help out our team a lot by just putting eyes up on enemy tank destroyer targets and medium tank targets, spotting where the enemy had positioned themselves so that our team could effectively counter position essentially. Although in the case of this round, I don't think our own team's positioning was as important as the, well, mispositioning of the enemy team. With that having been said, we'll move on to the second round in the AMX 1390 now, and we'll show you a completely different style of game. See you there. Alright, so in this game, we're playing the AMX 1390, as stated before, in a 5-10 matchmaking Tier 10, Tier 9 match. This one's a bit hazier in our memories, but we'll endeavor our best to figure out what we did. Ah, yes. We spawn in a tiny bit late because, well, the matchmaker was being a bit iffy with us. And our decision was to go down to the valley in between the two spawn zones. One of which is denoted by the red diamond in the bottom left of the minimap, which I should expand for the user's benefit, or the viewer's benefit. And, well, our own is denoted by a green diamond in the top right, which is currently covered up by a lot of our vehicles, but no matter. So we make our initial dash, we look around behind us, see which tank destroyers are in position to support us. Happens to be the Foch and the SCRV-103B. And we make a sort of a suicide dash forward in order to get around the flank of anyone trying to, well, essentially do what this guy did. And this shall set the tone for the rest of this game. This entire match, I was essentially playing an active tank assassin mode. And this is the second sort of gameplay style that you should, well, learn how to do in the current meta. Because if you don't know how to play like this, and I'm just going to throw this one out there, the easiest line of light tanks with which to be a tank assassin is the French light AMX line, which I'm currently playing. Because you have an autoloader with, well, in this case, 4 rounds in the magazine, each of which does about, what was it? About 250 to 350 average damage, somewhere in that ballpark. And once you get up to tier 10, you're doing even more damage, but at that point you only have 3 rounds in the clip. Initial movement here was just a spotting movement. I wasn't actually trying to get damage on anyone. But now that I see a grill pulling back, I take advantage of the situation. I notice that the WZ-132A is not actually here to support. And I sort of tunnel visioned in on this guy, and didn't really pay attention to the fact that the WZ-111G FT actually had a line of fire on me. And so I take a massive shell from him, but at this point, I'm already invested in getting damage in on this guy, and so I unload the rest of my clip, and I'm really thankful that the Leopard Prototype A did not actually manage to pen me with his high explosive. Just a quick note. Physics working as intended. Don't worry about it. Tank cartwheels are a gymnastic maneuver that help keeps your tank in good shape. That fiasco aside, we wait until we're reloaded, and we let the M46 Patton do a bit of the spotting in our stead, so that we don't have to expose ourselves as much. Now, we were briefly considering moving up on the Prototype A, and now that he fired, we are going to, well, essentially rush him down by auto-aiming in on him. The first round bounces off of his front paper armor, which he managed to angle himself in just a perfect enough way for that to happen, but that's RNG. It was a shot on the move. I'm not going to complain too much. But I will point out that it should have gone in a perfect world. And so we nearly could have gotten killed by him. And, well, we played a bit of a risky game with the WZ-111 GFT, but it ends up having worked out. I was somewhat relying on his inability to focus fire in on me, given that I had, I was expecting him essentially to be more focused on my M46 Patton ally. Who is now dead because the WZ-132A showed up again. He was probably camping in the K5 region that entire time, which sort of amazes me, but whatever. And now we're caught in the middle of a reload, which some of you might wonder why I didn't try firing the other 2 shells at a target. And the answer is because it really wasn't worth it, and I was expecting the WZ-132A to show up at any time, just as he did. And I'm pausing a lot, and do forgive me for that, but there's a lot I have to unpack about the micro movements I'm doing right now. My initial thought was to go into the rock formation, just behind me. Okay. So this rock formation right here has a pathway in it, which I was hoping to position myself inside. But after I first off crashed into that little rock, and I realized that the WZ-132A would essentially have open season on me if I tried to actually make it into there before I had finished reloading. And given that I was slowed down, he probably would be able to reload, put himself in a position to shoot me before I managed to get into cover. So, I decided to reverse this way, and go back down the hill to get under his gun depression, in order to, well, avoid his interest in me. And so we think to ourselves, you know what, maybe we'll, go all the way down into the valley and maybe work our way all the way back up to our cap zone, or spawn zone. But we decide that now that the WZ-132A has been suppressed, we will instead choose to loiter around in this area until we feel comfortable in making another push up the hill. And right now, we're again playing the typical light tank role where we're trying to spot 4 our allied tank destroyers so that the WZ-132A can be taken down, or maybe even the WZ, whichever of the 2 it happens to be. And having not spotted either of them, I decide to make my way into the aforementioned rock formation. But I get spotted by an AFK U-100, which made me a little bit angry, but honestly, whatever, I'll deal. And that we were not expecting. We weren't expecting it, but, well, we managed to spot him anyway, and hopefully our team will light him up at around this time. And we choose to go once again into the low ground as before, or do we? We see that the SCR-V103B is moving his way up in position, and yeah, we do make our way into the low ground in order to act as a flanking support tank on the WZ. So, we make our way, hopefully to flank the WZ, but he decides to reverse, And, well, he misses a shot because he's reversing, he's on the move, and, well, we were very lucky in both cases not to have been taken down. Both cases being from the WZ, a shot came in, and from the Conqueror GC. But it ended up being alright, and we see that the WZ's working his way over, and, well, we miss a shot into him, but it ends up being fine anyway at the end. The SPRV takes him down, and we're winning 6-3. Our folk up north should have the business well in hand, and the M53, M55, our American Tier 9 artillery manages to put a shot into us, and, well, we were low enough health that there was no real other way that was going to go. But this is one of the ways in which you need to learn to play a light tank if you want to get good at this game. So we'll take a quick look at the end plates and move on from there to our final round in the T92. So I'll see you there. So in that round, we managed to spot for a grand total of 3,760 points of damage and did 2,444 of our own, together with 1 kill, which picked us up a scout medal for spotting, 6 enemy tanks? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, I'll look that up later. Point is, we got ourselves a scouting medal for our assistance to the team by essentially being that early game surprise assassin, and also towards the mid game there, we again tried to play the assassin role, tried to fulfill what is essentially the role of a medium tank in this game, a support vehicle for other people who are supposed to frontline for you. In the medium tank's case, you want to be the support class for the heavy tanks, the ones who are coming in with kill shots or annoying shots after enemy heavy tanks have fired, and so on and so forth. And in the case of light tanks, you are the support class for both the tank destroyers and the mediums. And you function more or less as a very poorly armored medium. Moving on to the team scores, we see that we came in second on team for damage done. The ST1 up in the north managed to do a lion's amount of damage, and the SDRV 103B came in second for damage done, and we also came in second for experience earned. And with that, we'll be moving on to the third and final round, T92. Alright, for our final round, we're playing the American light tank, the T92. Some of you may be familiar with this tank from another game known as War Thunder, but for those who are unfamiliar, I don't know enough about its history to be able to really speak about it too well. Regardless, we're here to talk about how to play light tanks in World of Tanks. And, pausing here quickly, what I hope to show with this match is to bring in a lot of the points raised in the first and second matches and try to unify them into sort of one grand whole as to the intended or the meta role of light tanks as they currently stand within the gameplay mechanics and within the kind of tank choices that people make when they are playing their respective tanks, be they ally or enemy. So we're on the map. Which map is this? This is Erlenberg? Yes, I think it's Erlenberg. Yeah, I have 20,000 matches played in this game, and to this day I still don't remember the names of any of the bloody maps. Sue me. Anyway. Our initial move is to go down the eastern flank of the map, look at the sky, because we were gauging frame rate disparities between looking at terrain and looking at the sky. for some reason. And our aim here is to spot enemy light tanks, enemy tank destroyers moving into position in the trees perhaps, or stuff like the T-34-85 moving into his own position. And we're just staying mobile, taking snapshots, not really aiming anything. We can't afford to stop and aim in case anyone's looking at us, like artillery, who just hit the building in front of us. And all we're trying to do is gauge the positioning of the enemy team if they do move into such positions where we can see them, well, entering their respective positions. No matter. We notice again, Cromwell B, snapshot at him, not really to be effective, but mostly to get lucky. We see the Batchat 12T move up in position, and now that we're likely unspotted, we're moving up over to this hill in order to put ourselves in this tree line and at a specific bush in that tree line. On the off chance that the enemy team might start pushing this flank. Although it's one of the suspicions I had in mind at the time. Although, given the current way in which the enemy team is arrayed, a lot of them have gone into the mid at E5, and I think we'll see a lot more of them pushing down the one line later on in the episode, or at least in this match. So we see that the Batchat 12T is isolated, we hear him firing, and we decide we're going to come in with the kill. We were considering ramming him, but as it turns out, that was completely unnecessary after artillery came in to put a shell in on him. Thus, well, we saw it early enough that we didn't feel the ram was necessary, and diverted ourselves away. Which is a good thing, because that Hellcat and that Cromwell were eyeing me as a target that entire time. And had I rammed there, well, I would have likely ended up dead. No matter, I see that the Rheinmetall Borsig is in a position in which he can potentially help me snipe here, but I also notice that the enemy team does not have a lot of folk on this flank. There's just the Hellcat, the recently spotted artillery, and the Cromwell B. The Cromwell B is on half his health, and I am sneaky, fast, low profile, and I'm able to dodge this person's ability to put shots into me. Partially as an effect of luck, and also partially because I was driving in such a way that I'd maximize luck by obstructing myself with terrain. We bounce a shot off the Hellcat, donk another shot his way, which doesn't go anywhere, and get ourselves hung up on the map border. We managed to drive in such a way that we'll actually reverse in order to show off exactly what I was doing there while waiting for the team list to hide itself. So, I'm going to be pausing in this fashion in order to showcase the exact micro movements I was making in order to maximize the chance that DG Bucks here in the Hellcat would actually miss me. There was no guarantee that he would, but I was hoping that my movements would be able to juke his shot well enough, and they happened to. So, let's take a semi-frame by frame analysis of this. Artillery shell comes in, does damage, stuns our target. We're moving our way around the left side of this hill, and we see that DG Bucks is moving his turret to target in on us. We put a shot in. Maybe this helped confuse the enemy driver into, well, whiffing his shot. But now that we came around the left side, we make an immediate bank to the right, trying to hug the contour of this hill, and we already see that the enemy Hellcat has continued turning his turret to the left, and something I didn't notice during the match, but now I do, is that, as you can see by the track that is or the Hellcat's track that is closest to us, it isn't actually conforming to the contours of the wheels, or of the guide wheels. It has actually been blown off by that artillery shell, so he can't move. So luck compounding on top of luck, and all we're doing right now is maximizing our own chances of avoiding a shot. He's stunned, he's still turning his turret to the left, and by the time that he tries to correct for um, his turret turning, I'm already too far to the right for him to be able to hit me. I mean, it is still conceivable that an RNG shot spread might have been able to make a shell go into the side of my tank there, but fortunately it didn't, and we managed to avoid the shot entirely. And so we'll stop this nonsense stop and start fiasco. And notice that a GW Panther has been spotted. We again try lucking a shot in his direction. Our first shot catches his track. Our second shot goes in. Our third shot goes in. And enemy artillery manages to pick up the kill. And the enemy T-34 2GFT puts a shot into us and makes us very afraid for our lives. So here's the second bit of micro positioning. I put myself behind this building, partially in order to avoid potential attentions from the GW Panther, but also to keep a wall in between me and that 20 or 34 2G. And I continue moving in such a way that that building is in between me and his last spotted location. Now, however, I feel that I'm safe to just move around in the open in the way that I am, because I don't expect the T-34 2G to be able to, well, spot me with his, from the position in which he last was. I don't know, or I didn't think that there would be a way for him to spot me afterwards. So instead I try heading up to the mid. I notice I have a potential shot at a KV-2, and it was there for a moment. We missed the opportunity, and so we keep driving forward and narrowly dodge a shot from a GW Panther. But all's well that ends well, and we continue our little mad journey down the field here. We notice that the left or the west flank is mostly fallen, and that there's an M6 moving up on our artillery. And so we're now trying to put ourselves in a position where we can get shots on him to try to keep our own artillery alive. And we managed to pick up the kill, but unfortunately the M44 gets picked up by the VK-4503. Or, don't quote me on that, I don't remember who actually picked up the kill, but we're about to see. And this is where I think to myself, maybe I can start sniping at that T-34 2G now that he's been respotted, or maybe I can get a side shot into a KV-2, if that's possible. But with the way I was moving, that didn't seem like a viable possibility. M44 is calling out for help, and I think it is definitely the 4503 that picks him up. Our friend in the mid gets taken down by the 34 to GFT. As it turns out, the VK-4503 was picked up by our artillery, and it was the enemy artillery that took down our own. But whatever. And so now, this is where I hope to bring in a lot of the points from the other two rounds together in this one. In the first round, we saw the value in spotting the positions of enemy targets so that your team knows where the enemy is at all times. I hope to do the same thing right now, because I am the fastest tank currently left alive on team. I have the highest count, well, highest or second highest camo rating. I think the Rheinmetall Borsig Waffenträger might have a higher one, but where I trump the Borsig is that I also have a light tank camo buff in the form of being able to keep my camo rating while on the move. Whereas the Borsig, if he's moving, he's not able to keep his full camo rating, nor is his camo rating. Well, when you fire, your camo rating goes down regardless. But the point is, on the move, I can keep my camo rating intact, so I can prevent the enemy from spotting me a lot better than the Rheinmetall Borsig can. And my aim now is to try to bridge the gap between the SU-100Y and the Rheinmetall Borsig by hopefully spotting a T-28 prototype that's moving up the mid, or something to that effect, so that our allies can shoot at them without themselves being spotted. I am now the eyes of the team. In the second round, we talked about how playing an assassin role as a light tank is very important, and I am also going to try to fulfill that role in this round by staying alive as best as possible, staying undetected as best as possible, and, well, using my mobility to circle strafe and assassinate, again, to the best of my ability. We notice that the T-28 prototype right now has encroached a lot farther than I thought he would, which is somewhat unfortunate for the SU-100Y, who is going to either start calling out for help soon. Yep, there it is. But I can't really help him. I waffle for a moment, consider going in his direction in order to circle around the T-28 prototype to help with the kill. But I decide that enemy artillery presence, KV-2, which we now spot over there, the presence of the enemy is such that I'd be caught out in a crossfire, and that's not a good thing. So I waffle for a bit. I do end up sticking around with the SU-100Y for a moment, but I ultimately have to leave him alone to die, because I couldn't actually help him there. And so we've now decided to take up the mobile, fast, active spotter role. Right now, our two allies are stuck in K0, literally the bottom right-hand corner of the map. Their firing position is good, but we need to spot targets for them to take down. And at present, those targets are remaining unspotted. We hope maybe to catch the T-34 2GFT out in the open, or at least in between these buildings somewhere on our side of the river, but we don't manage to put eyes down on him. I consider briefly also going for artillery, I think, in this moment, but ultimately I decide, no, I need to stay with my team and provide eyes, otherwise they're going to get crossfired, and that's not good. And this is when the cap timer starts. And this is where I'll put in the third and final point about how to play light tanks in the current meta. Given that your spotting role is so important, and given that one of your functional roles is that of an assassin, the late game is when light tanks truly come into their own. Because if you manage to keep a decent health reserve, or even just keep yourself alive, you are extremely valuable to your remaining allies by providing those late-game spots, especially in a situation like this, and by being there to take down low-health targets with what is usually a fast-firing, low-damage gun. As is the case with the T-92, which I think has an average damage of about 180, 160, something like that. No matter. We weave our way through the buildings, or at least through these mounds, in order to spot the T-28 prototype, so that our artillery can put some fire into him, We move up onto this hill. Again, we're trying to spot the remaining targets. We don't know where they are. We feel that the KV-2 might be coming in through the mid somewhere, but rather than keeping ourselves going down the city road, or down the road in the city, because if we do run into the KV-2 or, God forbid, the T-34 to GFT, we're basically dead. So I use my speed to climb a set of rubble that is normally impassable for a lot of the other vehicles, but we managed to make it over. And again, our aim right now is to spot available targets, and the only available target we know of for certain is the T-28 prototype, which we spot again, like just the very tip of his turret, and yep, had we stayed moving through the city, we would have been taken down by the T-34. So here we are, and he makes a massive mistake in movement, and we miss our opportunity to do damage to him, but he whiffs his shot, thus allowing us to do damage to him. We tried to get around him, but that didn't end up working. We whiff another shot into him, and we turn off auto-aim and actually aim in at a weak spot, which we managed to hit and take down. Now, some of you may have thought that moving out in front of this KV-2 was actually a really dangerous play. God forbid, I could have been hit there. But, as I'll show again in the same way I did with the Hellcat, I wasn't actually in any danger there, and we're good to go again. So, we spotted the T-28, considered taking a shot, but it was dodgy, so we didn't. And we noticed that the KV-2 was pointing his turret somewhat to our left. So, his right, our left. As if he was intending to go down the corridor to the left, thinking I might try flanking the T-28. And here we see that the KV-2 has his turret fixed in that direction, thinking I might be coming around that way, trying to be sneaky, and he makes a mistake by thinking I would do that. And I put myself out in front of his tank. He notices I'm here now. He tries to correct, but it's too late. I take a shot, and by the time he takes his, I'm already behind cover. He misses, and now I feel perfectly safe, coming in to essentially circle strafe him, although I end up losing a bit of health by literally scratching the paint on his tank. But no matter, we stay alive, and move our way back towards this mound in order to get ourselves safe from artillery. But we expect, right about now, we're probably unspotted, and we once again want to try to circle strafe this T-28, or at least spot him for our team, do something. We stay in between these buildings. Again, we're trying to stay safe from artillery. And now, that we're unspotted, we make our move towards the T-28. We bounce a shot off of him. Again, get back into artillery cover. And once we go unspotted, we will now make this move around this side of the building in order to flank the T-28 prototype, who we see is there. He was expecting us to come out, but we took the risk, end up taking the kill in, and now it's just a case of mopping up the enemy artillery, who we expect to be somewhere in the A3 location, given that we didn't spot him earlier in along the A6 through A0 quadrants. So the only really other viable place for artillery is in the bushes at A3. That's just one of the typical places you can expect artillery to hide. You play a couple games on this map, and pay attention to where artillery gets spotted, and that's typically where they get spotted towards the end of the game. And the one thing you can rely rely on artillery to be consistent about is being unspotted in exactly the same places every time. So, we spot the GW, we move around. He wasn't expecting us to be here, really. He wasn't prepared to shoot at us. He waited a bit too long, perhaps, and we end up taking the kill, and that's the round. So, this, I hope, showcases exactly why it is important to stay alive as a light tank towards the end of a round. And with that, we'll move on to the end plates to wrap this whole episode up. Alright, looking at the end plates here, we see we got ourselves a mastery badge in the T92 for getting a grand total of 7 kills, giving us a top gun, 2260 damage, 1951 spotting damage, and altogether we managed to earn 7 bonds, as well as 4000 experience on a ×2. We got ourselves a patrol duty medal, which I made sure to look this up so I'm not confusing these two. Patrol duty you get for detecting 9 or more enemy tanks on the winning team. Um, Essentially, you were playing your intended role as a light tank. You detected where enemy tanks were, you saw them, you were able to point out to your teammates which positioning they should be playing around. And the Scout Medal is for helping your allies to damage 6 or more vehicles. And so yeah, so these are the medals we got. It was a tier 8 match with 357 matchmaking. Somewhat perfect for us in that we were able to actually carry the game in this circumstance. And we came in with 1,447 base experience points. This is before premium account bonuses are added. This is before um, bonuses from other things such as the what are they called? Well, like these sort of timed bonuses for either experience, credits earned per battle over the course of an hour or two. So before all bonuses, 1,447 base experience. And that about puts a wrap to this how to play light tanks version of the 3-round rumble. Leave a like, leave a comment, leave a subscription, make a request perhaps of what kind of video you'd like me to do in the future for the 3-round rumbles, something you'd like to learn about how to play the game. Give us some feedback. And with that said, I wish you all good luck, and I'll see you in other rounds. Good day.